Every ancient story, every legend has a real context, and children's movies are no exception. Stay with me, because I'm going to tell you the real story behind the Snow White movie, and you'll meet Rose. A 13-year-old girl who in 1785 had to flee from her wicked stepmother to avoid being hunted down by force. And yes, she did get lost in the forest. And yes, she ended up living with 7 very peculiar creatures. Do you want to know the whole truth about the real case that gave life to Snow White? I know you do. I promise not to disappoint you, and don't you dare miss the end, because I am the documentalist. And this is the real story behind Snow White and the movie. Subscribe to the channel, you won't regret it. Give it a like and comment. Adaptation of the Snow White movie. I'll read you in the comments. Snow White, written by the Grimm brothers in 1812, is a tale about obsessions, in this case, about beauty as a value in itself. As for others, it could be gold, land, or youth. But the real Snow White, she only wished to have something that was taken from her, her freedom. Pay attention. For 1785, 13-year-old Rose Tassilo, daughter of an important count, was alone in her castle in Swabia, Germany. And she had only one concern, to please her new stepmother, Wilhelmina, who would arrive at any moment with her father. Was the Count's marriage to that unknown woman quick? They say the man was obsessed with participating in paranormal talks, and that took him on a journey to a frozen village, 5 days away, where they held those rounds of stories of myths and legends, real ghosts, Olympian goddesses, and Nordic mythology. That's where Wilhelmina appeared, with her stories about demons and spells. She was introduced to the Count, who was standing with his back to the table, and upon seeing her was so captivated by her beauty that, using his position and money, he claimed her in marriage. The next day, the first condition that Wilhelmina had set to accept was simple. A huge box with an antique mirror would go with her wherever she went. Which didn't surprise the Count, who thought they were just objects of justified vanity. The second condition was a bit more complex. They should also take Anton, the woman's brother, a huge man, about 50 years old, who was born deformed, and his appearance made him look like a cave ogre. After the wedding, they set off for the castle where Rose Tassilo was waiting for them. The little one had been eager to do so ever since she received the letter that said, "Dear daughter, my little one, I regret that my trip has been postponed. I have married Wilhelmina. I hope to count on your collaboration to make her feel welcome in our palace. See you in a week. By the way, her brother, a giant named Anton, will also be living with us. I want it to be known that his face is damaged. I ask that the staff be notified so they are prepared. I don't want screams of terror upon seeing him. I'm already waiting to tell you what I've learned, to talk to you about the Alamu Berlin. In these talks about the paranormal, I heard about them. They are ancient and are obsessed with gold. They are very wise and capable of digging the mountain with the strength of their arms and claws. I'll tell you later. With love, Count Augusto Tassilo, Dad." The castle staff was ready, but as expected, everything went wrong. Very bad. They arrived at night while Rose was sleeping. Her father got out of the carriage, already seriously ill, and died a few hours later. The funerals were quick, and right there, in front of his coffin, Rose met her. Wilhelmina was tall, beautiful, with a long neck and clear, penetrating sky-blue eyes. Your mouth seemed like a work of art, and the white teeth, with slightly longer canines, looked like pearls. But something was not right. She tried to smile at him in the midst of anguish, but her stepmother, now the owner and lady of the castle, clenched her jaw and ordered that she be immediately removed from her sight and locked in the tower until further notice. That same night, she felt footsteps climbing the stairs. She thought they were coming to free her, that it had all been a misunderstanding. She looked through the small crack in the door and screamed in fright. Anton wanted to kiss her. He put his hand in and tried to grab her while saying with his deformed mouth, "Beautiful girl, beautiful girl." And he shook the thick wood covered with iron, but he couldn't tear it off. Panting, enraged, he left Rose undone, in tears of panic. What no one knew was that Wilhelmina was not a natural beauty. No, one made by God, nothing like that. Inside the huge mirror she had brought lived an ancient demon, conjured and condemned to fulfill a wish to whoever reflected in it on full moon nights. And Wilhelmina asked for beauty and youth, and in exchange she offered human sacrifices. Why had he ordered Rose to be locked up? Because when she saw her, she was astounded. The little one, even with her tear-stained and distressed face, looked as beautiful as her. And that meant she would become a rival to fear, because for her, beauty was power. The full moon arrived, and Wilhelmina cleaned the mirror with blood. In the basements of the castle, the corpse of the maid sacrificed in honor of the demon was still writhing. Then, as soon as the blood covered the glass, the infernal appeared. No, in the reflection. This is not a Disney movie. He appeared behind her and hugged her, kissing her neck and whispering in her ear.
You already know this, don't you? Your stepdaughter Rose, that little girl is more beautiful than you. And she is by the grace of God. And we hate what he does, so we have to ruin her in every possible way. Now tell me what you want.
She stroked his face and replied, "The usual. Give me beauty and youth." He fell to the ground unconscious. When he woke up in the morning, his skin had no marks and his face was glowing like never before. Then he knew what to do. He called his brother Anton and said, "Will you marry Rose immediately and have a child? Be tough with her. I don't want her to speak, eat, or breathe without asking your permission. And after the wedding, take her to the forest. Live in the wilderness or in a cave, wherever you want. Force her to work tirelessly. Return in a year before the full moon. When you see her again, she must be as ugly and as sad as you." Anton smiled pleased and immediately went to look for her in the tower, but the Count's widow ran the property with an iron hand. And to that you have to add the missing maid and dear Rose locked up. So Anton arrived late. The employees, angry with Wilhelmina, had taken the little one out of there minutes before. They gave him a horse and a map of the forest with a note that said, "Don't come back. We've heard that you want to marry Anton. Your father was always good to us. Run, don't look back." Rose opened her eyes, unable to believe what she was reading. She said goodbye in silence and headed towards the forest. The beautiful young woman would rather die than get married, especially not to that old giant and deformed man with a bad temper and terrible intentions. Night came and Rose got lost. The wolves howled closer and closer. She let go of the horse's reins and let the animal use its instinct to take her to some shelter in the morning. The faint light filtering through the trees allowed her to distinguish that she had arrived at a completely stone building with a wooden door and covered by the damp vegetation of the place. She knocked insistently, but no one came out. Exhausted, she entered through the tiny side window. Her eyes took a few seconds to adjust to the darkness, and then the horror completely overtook her when she saw them. In the shadows of that house were 7 creatures no more than 1 meter tall, muscular and hunched over, with huge hands. Their eyes glowed in the dark and their faces showed fury. One of them approached and said to her, "Are you stupid? You brought a horse to us?" Men follow the tracks of horses, and all of them are after our gold, all without exception. But you are not a man. You are a woman, a very reckless one, who will only bring death. And giving the order, the other 6 quickly went out like rabid wolves. They knocked down the horse with their own claws. They didn't let it stand. They started to tear it apart with bites. The poor horse was kicking and opening its tearful eyes filled with terror until one of them pounced on its neck and began to tear off its flesh. And so until gushes of blood began to come out and finally the horse stopped kicking. Rose's screams were of no use. They took her to a sort of kitchen, forced her to prepare the remains of the animal's meat in a gigantic oven. And from that moment on, she was confined inside the house, unable to leave under guard. Always by one of them, none of them spoke to her again. Far from the rough but sweet dwarfs of the Snow White movie. These things were beastly. They knew that sooner or later men would come for her, and that's exactly what happened. One afternoon, one of them shouted, "There's a giant on the road. He comes with an axe and a sword. He looks like a cave troll. Get ready!" Rose told them, "That beast is called Anton, and they wanted to marry me to him. That's why I ran away. Please don't let him take me. Kill me now, because I also don't want to spend my life with you in this pigsty, suffering these abuses and these filthy tasks. And I also don't want to go with him." The leader of the 7 showed indignation and with a thunderous voice reproached her. "Pigsty, you call our home that and say you suffer. For our culture, allowing a stranger to cook and clean in exchange for shelter and security is the highest possible honor. We are Salemuberling, and in the whole ancient world there are no beings superior to our class. And you are human, nothing more than a simple human. Haven't you noticed that one of us always protects you, so you don't run through this forest full of wicked men and equally hungry beasts? Do you know what they do to girls like you in these lawless lands? And this is how you repay our friendship. Now wait in silence, follow me, and you will see our power." They took her by the arm and tied her to the big tree. They rang a bell and left. Anton didn't take long to show up. Rose screamed when she saw him. That beast must have been almost 8 feet tall and didn't look happy at all as it smiled. He yelled at it as he cautiously approached, fearing a trap.
You made me look ridiculous in front of my sister because Mina is furious. And do you know what she does when she's furious?
And he opened his shirt to show her his body full of whip marks. And then he added,
I'm going to drag you by the hair to the castle and you're going to marry me. Or would you prefer I leave you tied up in a cave until you give me 10 children?
Rouse replied to him, I'd rather die than remain a prisoner. Anton, angry, quickened his pace and didn't see the trap until he stepped on it. A huge log hit his hip and knocked him down. The 7 Allen boomerangs attacked at once, coming from different directions. In a matter of seconds, they tore off his legs and unleashed Rose. The giant crawled screaming, but he didn't get very far. Finally, just like that horse, he bled out. The leader told Rose, no one has offended us as much as you. In my 14,000 years on this earth, get out of here and don't come back. We will escort you to the road that leads to your homeland. Rose looked at those beastly and proud creatures and said to them, Listen, I apologize from the bottom of my heart. I was unaware of your customs, and personally, I value freedom above anything, person or task, no matter how honorable it may be. You're invited to my castle. If you do me the small favor of getting rid of my stepmother, you can take the gold that my father treasured in his coffers. Upon hearing the word gold, the eyes of the 7 lit up, and within minutes they were on their way to the palace. During the journey, Rose told them what the wicked woman had done to her, and the creatures understood. Wilhelmina heard the screams of the servants and came out of her quarters. She found herself facing the small Rose, beautiful and defiant. In her hands she had Anton's head. She threw it at her feet, pointed at her and shouted, indicating, She is my stepmother. You know what to do. And the leader of the Salem Upperlands stepped forward and knocked the stepmother to the ground. And before biting her face, he said, Of all the women I've seen, you are undoubtedly the most horrible. That night a party was held at the castle. The 7 were applauded by the servants, and when they left again for their lands, they took as a reward a chest full of coins, jewels, and gold candelabras. Rose bid them farewell with a kiss. The Salem Moverlands found it incredible that someone could give away gold with as much happiness as Rose did. In the culture of these creatures, this precious metal was sacred, and they would rather die than lose it. For our beautiful protagonist, however, it had been an excellent deal to obtain the most precious thing. Her freedom, and that's the end of the story. They lived happily ever after. No. I told you this is not a Snow White movie. You won't see the Disney mouse around here. Because, she longed for freedom because she had beauty and youth. But Alan Moverling was right. Countess Rose Tassilo was only human. And when wrinkles and blemishes left behind the memory of her precious face, she realized that the giant mirror. At night, during the full moon, he heard interesting ideas in his ear, ghostly voices whispering to him, ideas that seemed fascinating to him. My research confirms that they never found Rose's tomb, not in the castle cemetery. But from the basement they removed more than 40 bodies. And an old local song, one of those for children, explains what happened. It goes something like this.
The maids go down, down. Roz hits them with the shovel, takes their blood and continues. Beautiful face, maiden fair with 100 years of countess, always young and mischievous, always beautiful the princess, always beautiful the princess, always young and bloody. In a castle in old Germany, a girl dreamed of love and calm. Her father left with promises and faith, but upon returning he never saw her again. The stepmother arrived with a dark pact. She brought in her hands an impure mirror, a demon in her soul, blood on her skin, and a beastly brother with a cruel gaze. The maids go down, Cruz hits them with a shovel. He takes their blood and continues. Beautiful face, maiden's beauty, with 100 years of countess, always young and mischievous, always beautiful the princess, always beautiful the princess, always young and bloody. 7 creatures with steel hands lived hidden, digging the ground. She found her refuge in her home, but gold is her god and there is no mercy. And when the moon rose in the sky, the beast came with its fury and vigilance. It screamed. Her sentence swore to possess, but death was in her path. The documentarian whispers the story that time hid in its dark memory. Rose was free, but as she aged, she listened to the mirror and wanted to give in. The maids go down. Rose hits them with a shovel, draws their blood and continues. Beautiful face, pretty from 2, that she with 100 years the countess, always young and mischievous, always pretty the princess, always pretty the princess, always young and bloody.
Thank you. Would you like me to send you greetings at the end of my videos? Join as a channel member below the video, where it says join and receive this and other benefits. Special greetings to all channel members: Carlos Montes, Juan Jacobo, Tlawis Calvan, Jonathan Pacheco, Miriam Romero, Jesús Mora, Keimer Chávez, Álvaro Medina, Dani Gardera, Ignacio Juan Ramón, Julio Vidal Radiestesista, Leonor and Brian Barbe, Nubian Cantu, Eleonora Rosy Marias, Verónica Pereira, Gloria Arreia, Lucas Munoz, Olalán García Tamaranda, Subatric Rosas, Amalia Contreras, Rosalía, Eduardo Guisache, Edu Oche, Tasegor Bautista, María Félix Martínez, Rosy, Adán, Biguán Frieva, Tomás V, Wolf Villarroel, Dinela Vallecillo, Miguel Troncoso, María Raquel Pérez Germán, Virgen El Chuda, Energy Detective, Carlos Chirín, Freddy Villalobos, Ana María Morán, Chris Alexander Lorenzo Warchak-Sikin, Brenda Polvón, Jonathan Micael Mortarotti, Ernesto Pérez Señorita, T. Angel Luis Batista Mendoza, Miguel Fabián Ayesa, Winsomega Cuareta, Franco Mancini, thank you, Sara Marrazo, Miguel Urbina, Jimena Paulina Cabrera, Enedia Solchax, Nicolás Flores, Milagros Rutherford, Lili Montes, Jess Eliana Castaneda, LDJR April Suárez, Andrés Ramírez, Graciela Cabral, Lilia Lili Cruz Ibarra Al Capone, Carla. Thank you and see you next time. El Flossi, Rosalinda Velázquez Estrada, Pierre Iván Ramet, El Real, Zeni, José Balsino, Francisco Rodríguez and Papi Chulo. And see you next time.